True.
Let's see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can hear you now.
Ah, very good. Yeah, you're early. How are you? Good to see you.
Good. Yeah, good to see you too. How are you?
Is that's a photograph background again, right?
Yes, yes. This was our travels last year in Vietnam. Uh,
Ah, okay. Yeah, it does look a little Vietnamese. Hang on, I'm just changing the audio here. Yes, it just looked also very bright because it's not very bright for you now, is it?
yeah, no, it's night. It's 9 p.m.
Nine, right. Okay. So I had a meeting with someone today. Let me just bring up, excuse me, I have this annoying cough.
Hi, Tom.
Bring up
Hello,
page.
Hi,
guys.
Peter.
Hey, hang on, just bringing up a page here. There isn't really anything on it, but here it comes. Yeah, I had a really interesting meeting today with one of Edgar's good friends' dad, who is a corporate lawyer, brilliant guy, and he had some ideas in this space. So I'll wait a bit and update you because I think it can kick off some good discussion. So my question then is, how is everybody? Actually, shouldn't it be how are everybody grammatically? Obviously, that's wrong, but why not?
Well, that's if we answer collectively. If is one person, so I assume you
Yeah,
want to each one of us to answer that individually because I can't speak for Mohit and Peter.
yeah.
It's
Okay,
hot.
that actually explains it. Thank you.
English
I know,
is fun.
and it's your second language. I get it.
No, yeah, no, no. I mean, I don't make those mistakes, but it's funny when you kind of look at the logic of the language of, one of the
Okay,
great things about
that's your
English is
first mistakes. You said logic and language in the same sentence. Okay,
in English that doesn't work together.
it
I
doesn't work
completely
at
agree.
all in English.
English is a colonial language that's just taken over from everywhere. So
Yeah, but
both,
it's also a sponge language because
yeah,
the Saxons started it out, but then the French messed it up, and before that the Norwegians messed it up too. Uh, and so you kind of mash
we
all
ha
three of those things together.
we helped to clarify it. That's what we did. That's how I like to think of it.
Anyway,
Anyway,
doing
indeed.
okay. Riding the bull through the end of the semester last week, trying to get everybody over the hump and being very smacked in the face by my own reality and learning from that too.
What's your own reality, Tom?
Well, I assumed that my students would be better at asking follow-up questions and iterating with the AI because they ask me those questions, but they don't think to do it with the AI. And so the lesson learned is I really have to teach them to do that and to do it in a way that's productive for them. The biggest problem with that is that works for my in-person classes where I have them live, but the online anytime classes, I cannot figure out how to get that through to them
Well, they
because
assume it's an oracle. I mean, you ask the system, it
exactly
gives me the answer. No,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right,
you as a
exactly, and that's
professor,
that's
you're a
what I'm trying to
human.
break. Yeah. Well, no, 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 no. I'm the oracle too. I mean, they assume I'm an oracle too, and I'm like, yeah, no, I make mistakes too. And I've been saying that for years. But everybody makes mistakes. You can't. There are no oracles in life. It's everybody screws things up, and so therefore, your job is to always ask that next question. But if, but why, things like that. And they don't know to do that. They've been
Well,
trained.
Google has given them that. Oh, here's a good enough answer, and the AI summary. Oh, well, I don't need to do any more digging on this. It's figured it out for me because it's read it. I mean, the psychology of it is
Yeah.
that's good enough,
But
and I
we've
don't
also
need to
trained them.
ask.
We've also trained
Yeah.
them because in education, it's follow my lead, not think for yourself. It is do what your teacher tells you to do, and uncritically. And that is something that has to be broken. It is a behavioral pattern that has to be broken. And yes, Google reinforces that, and other computers reinforce that in some ways. And it may be explicit because, if I'm going to build an AI to attract people, I'm going to make it look like an oracle because I know that's what they're looking for. And it worked for religion, might as well work for the computer as well. And so yeah, and that so it reinforces that too. So yeah, I'm fighting against all sorts of demons here, and that's it's sobering because I have to figure out a way out of this pickle. Simply put, if there is no way out of this, then we're all screwed because education has to solve this, and we're not even. Most of my colleagues are not even asking these kinds of questions. I will say that, and I'm much further down the road than they are. And as my good friend Ruben Pointadura is one of the foremost experts on pedagogy in the country or the world, told me, he said, "You've gone way further down this path than anybody else I know." So I'm like, and of course that's scary. It's scary to run down that path by yourself and then go, where is everybody? So yes, and unfortunately, I have to deal with the reality of what my students are, and the fact that they need a grade at the end of the semester, and how to navigate that without ruining the mechanics of the course and the logic of the course, et cetera, et cetera. And this is where that push comes to shove happens, and it's tough. It's tough on them. It's tough on me. So.
Yeah, I mean,
Hey,
obviously this speaks to the new literacy we have to learn about how to deal with AI. Unless we spend the kind of time we are, and especially you, Tom, these issues come up 2 years ago, and when this is beginning to happen, this wasn't even thought of as an issue. So it's
Mhm.
a challenge for you, but you are a true pioneer. So I hope you enjoy that part of it too.
I
Yeah, I
really
definitely have
appreciate
the
you
arrows in my back.
sharing so much of it for me
Yeah.
is the most learning I get out of you doing it. Because
Hey, we learn from
I
mistakes. I keep telling people this. We learn from mistakes, not success. And if you can learn
True.
from someone else's mistakes, so much the better, right?
yeah.
I
Well,
see Peter
I did this
Demetrius.
other. I put the link to this other one. I started listening to it at 11 o'clock. It's kind of the usual blather, but the fact that Brookings is doing a nice encapsulation of here's the problems with education might get
Oh
it some
God,
attention
not the
because people
Brookings
listen to
talk.
them. Yeah, yeah. And it's like, but it's kind of like, I'd rather join you guys and have a rough and tussle, a
So
real conversation than listen
w-
to them blather on about their report, which was kind
w-
of
one of
doesn't
one of
whitewash it
my
so much.
one of
Thank you,
my other
Peter.
discussion one of my other discussion groups is with Ruben Pointadura and Brian Alexander, and we spent a day trashing that Brookings because Brian was there. And he was like, "What the hell are these idiots talking about?" And so it's really hard to find good stuff out there. I will say this. I mean, I just shared a thing the other day about from the Atlantic about they looked at a number of different studies, and the best study is the one from Yale, and it's far from perfect, but the other ones are way off base, and it's they don't hold up to scrutiny. And people are just sort of flailing about going, we got to come up, we're supposed to be the answer people, so therefore let's give them an answer. And of course the problem with that as a scholar is you got to realize that you can't just do that. You can propose a thesis, but you can't give an answer until you prove it. And that's hard. It's hard because we don't have enough data. We do not have enough data. And the stuff I'm dealing with and trying to explain my sample size is less than 100 students. And so I, as a social scientist, immediately go, this is a small sample size. Although I have seen entire educational programs based on a sample size of 30 students. It's the craziest thing ever. And I'm like, I used to be the terror of the administration because somebody would trot in with these studies and I'd look at it and go, there's one class here. This proves nothing. And we're going to base our program on it. That's crazy. And they didn't like that because it was the latest thing, right? And this happens all the time in education. And you would think, but yeah. As I say, don't get an education degree, get a social science degree, get a degree in sociology, get a degree in political science, because those degrees will teach you how to look through all the BS that comes out of people with education degrees.
So, Tom, it's really
Yeah.
useful what you did as an intro there. There's something that came up earlier today that's going to be in my brief slideshow after this. So we're
Okay.
definitely going to be in the education space. But I'm wondering, well, I see both the Peters are half missing. So I'm going to ask you, Mohit, how are you doing?
Uh, I'm uh, I'm not so fun. Last week was not so fun. Was not able to work that much, so kind of stuck.
Oh, wait, tell us more.
What are you stuck
Um,
on?
Stuck on. I think Ki, I have got my hands too spread out. Reading different kinds of things and not able to make much sense of any of them. And so I felt a little overwhelmed.
That's a good time to go sit on the top of a mountain and just sort of think. I mean, I get unoverwhelmed by walking.
Yeah,
And
me
that's where
too.
it
Me
starts
too.
to come together, and then it
Yeah,
suddenly, because and I have to be by myself, and I have to be not listening to stuff, and I just and it starts, when I feel overwhelmed, that's the way I have to get out of it.
yeah, yeah. That is good. Yeah, doing
But,
something. Getting out of the space.
Hmm.
but Mohit, why don't, if you want to, why don't you tell us a little bit about your problem situation or your problems or whatever is making you go a bit, wow.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know I could share. So,
No, absolutely.
okay. So, with the project, I've been trying to frame it in an actionable form and trying to think of the different parts that one could work on. And also trying to reach out to people that could be interested. So last around I guess 6 months back, I had meets a few meetings here uh, mm, with a person, an executive person here in a big telecom company. um, and over the course of some meetings, I had shared what I was thinking about and trying to work on. And but for them, the whole project seemed like a contextual problem, something that Google tries to address through ads and other companies by collecting data and then surfacing relevant things to people during their interaction. And um, through the course of the meetings, s- uh, they were of the opinion that the whole thing that I was just thinking about was uh, um, uh, was either too foolish or could be very small. Small in the sense that and also there were no realizable moats around it. Even if this further estimate, even if this was a $1 billion opportunity, then to the next day if Google wants to do it or Apple wants to do it, you wouldn't have any moats around
Hmm.
the project. And so
Oh,
that
moat, like to protect it. Okay, yeah, I get it.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. So that was one. But I guess, also I've been looking at what other services, there was this browser, I was following them, the Art browser, by the browser company of New York. They were later acquired, I think, last year by Atlassian, the Australian company. Um, then there is this. I don't know, if it has surfaced but what's the name? Mm, Sublime. There's this Sublime. then there is my mind. I guess a lot of people are thinking about I guess uh, the bookmarking aspect. My mind, is a bookmarking application. And similarly, Sublime is a bookmarking application. Um, and I also came across, interestingly, earlier I used to listen to the public lectures of the Santa Fe Institute and their seminars. This week they had a very interesting seminar, a public lecture by Thalia Whitley. She presented her work on the beautiful engineering of us, from neurons to collective minds. And I was thinking of, regarding in my own project, I think it's been maybe, be too focused on the individual. Like, while the interesting things happen when we interact with other people, their ideas. So even though even though I was concerned about what happens when we are interacting with new information, and in what form do we interact, and how do we bring relevant things from the past and make interactivity possible. But I was not really giving more attention to uh, to how to entangle or how to engage with other people, in this. So there is this company that is in the academic space, Hypothesis.
Hmm.
So yeah, so what they do is that so yeah, everyone is aware. So their project has been in my mind for quite some years. That you can highlight on anything, you can annotate on any page, and you can see other people's annotations on that page. So I guess that is wonderful, in a sense that but we don't treat those things. We don't treat, so to speak, uh, mm, uh, the process of meaning making as social. But meaning is always arising through social aspects, and right now, social has become very metrics driven, sort of very engagement driven. While I guess there are various, and also there's this thing that maybe the right form to do these things is sort of the decentralized way, like what making protocols so that you have interoperability. Like Hypothesis works with basically all web pages, right? Everything. If you have a web page, you can work with Hypothesis. What would it mean to have a decentralized system that uh, which we can utilize while interacting, maybe in Netflix, maybe uh, on YouTube. I know a lot of these platforms are very closed. Some are a fair bit open. Um, but yeah, so these half-baked things.
Well, it's a very pertinent and relevant thing to talk about. You're talking about both knowledge units, annotations, and the collaborative aspect, which is obviously really, really important. So I've also come up against that many times. So let's keep that in mind. Anyone have any immediate comments to Mohit on what he said before we move on to asking how Peter and Peter's doing? And then we'll do a brief slideshow and go on with the dialogue.
I have some books that I'm going to throw into the chat for Mohit. That might be a little
Thank you.
bit, might be a little bit of an oven to help him bake his ideas in.
Revenge!
Thanks,
Mohit
Tom.
has to buy books too. He has to buy books too. Perfect, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Peter D, since you are visible.
Okay.
How are you?
Doing fine. We're hot here in North Carolina, and getting hotter, but everyone seems to be healthy and holding steady. Electricity is still on, so air conditioning works. most important part. Yeah, and Mohit, you started to talk about how the collaboration would happen. I think that a lot of the media companies, they're trying to buy the platforms, Galaxy TV tries to do it, and Android OS and whatnot. And Roku had kind of a shot of being across. I think they just got bought, so they're going to get kind of screwed down into a particular media conglomerate. But a lot of it's going to be happening across game platforms, across things that aren't traditionally HTTP, HTTPS. So it's going to be an interesting time to see how the web protocols become secondary to these commercial. You're going to YouTube, you're not going to the web. RSS feeds are kind of on decline. Maybe they'll come back a little bit. There's some way of doing kind of cross-platform notifications and whatnot. But other than trying to keep up with everything, all these different communities I'm a part of, I'm really I haven't been able to code anything. I just kind of follow things. I'm becoming a consumer again rather than a maker. And that's annoying for now, but hey, if I keep consuming enough, eventually I'll get upset about something enough to make me want to write something.
True. Yeah.
But everything is really good. There's also so many people doing wonderful work. I have a bunch of stuff being rewritten in Rust that's really nice, can run in browsers and WebAssembly. There's some nifty stuff going on that's next gen kind of networking that's out there that may actually help with the 3D virtual reality world, because there was a lot of hype over at AWE, the what is it? The
Amazon Web
Artificial
Service?
Worlds Expo in Long Beach last week. Something. It was kind of very interesting. I got friends who kind of participate in that, and they're feeding me all sorts of interesting things. But a lot of it's business related. The technologies are still kind of hidebound. So we're still in the early stages, I think, of when we can make a difference.
I agree.
That's it for me.
Yes, me too. It can make a difference.
Peter W., are you with us, or are you snacking at this particular moment?
Well, I am with you. Food's off on the side, talking at the moment, and also reading the transcript stream on that interesting Brookings talk. Lately, I've been going crazy over my obsession with typeset quality text. So I've been trying to get NUF+ line breaks on the web, but I also want to be able to bind the characters to nano IDs associated with each one for purposes of standoff markup. And my current pain point is that when the line break algorithm rearranges things, it's actually upsetting the sequence of offset of the characters that are being displayed. So, for instance, if it's on one line, you go to two lines, now suddenly the offset of a given letter relative to the text block has been changed because now there are extra bits of glue in there and extra line break characters. So if E was offset 27 in the raw text, now suddenly it might be 28 or 26 after my text reflows to look beautiful. Also, I'm having a couple issues with the library pretext that I was using to measure the character widths, to feed the character widths into the line break algorithm, and it's having issues with Google Web Fonts. And the result is, if I'm using a Google Web font, the output of the line break algorithm will look all clumped together. So it'll be like two letters smushed into each other a little bit, then a little bit of a gap that shouldn't be there, and it looks clumpy. But if I tell it to use just Times as the font, then everything instantly pops up perfectly because Times is always there, already part of the operating system. So I've been probing with a couple different AIs, trying to figure out how I can get it so that the measurements come out appropriately, which also suggests the other possibility of using signed distance field fonts instead of using regular web fonts, because then the utilities that generate the data files for that also put out a JSON file that includes within it the widths of all the characters. So if I went that route, my measuring the width issue becomes a non-issue. But that technology doesn't support the kerning pairs that you get in regular web fonts. So that element would wind up breaking. And they also have trouble with emoji. So if you want to have emoji in your text, then you're sort of back in the world of the web fonts to get it. So I've been sort of banging my head and debating with the AIs what the best way to go forward is. I'll report back in a couple of weeks and see if I can get nailed down. But at the moment, if I make times the font, then yes, I have the beautifully typeset text on the screen. However, I still don't have stable offset indexes. So I'm working that problem now.
Interesting challenge. Interesting challenge.
Okay, going back to the food.
Okay. Just two things here, guys. I'm going to give you a link to a really brief video. It's less than 30 seconds for quality. This is not to be shared, but have a look at it on your own systems if you don't mind. It's just my meeting over coffee with a friend today, and he's obviously in the headset. That's the point. There's some, just turn the volume off because I just wanted to highlight something to you guys. One of the things is the nodes now have a bit of color, and the text is on both sides. So he has an idea for kind of a
This is
implementation.
interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, right? Because obviously
Yeah.
I filmed the laptop showing what you show, but we have already in the system, the nodes can have different displays. Like if it's a name, it's italic, but we also have green for done and red for issue. So we're working a little bit on that. But let me just do a few slides. And just to kick off our discussion here. You can see, right?
Yeah.
So it goes a little bit back to the original question here: why bother work in XR, and also what to work in XR with. This is what Claude came up with last week, because we went through several cycles of it trying to help me do the research for what's unique for XR, and it said it's not really knowledge work; it's contested synthesis. And what it further described was that having a lot of stuff in space that isn't structured yet. Thought that was a really interesting insight. As an aside, I also asked Claude today to try to research what human vision is for itself, so it could help us in dialogue with it come from that perspective. And it came back with it now appreciates my instance of Claude, at least, that the cards, meaning the little cards with text in space, they're not equal, right? Because Claude doesn't have a foveal vision, no periphery. It doesn't have any of our visual system. So now it knows this. I think that's kind of useful. And it said, sometimes, it comes up with provocative sentences, like it said, you read through a straw, you humans. It's absolutely right, because of the foveal vision is really, really tiny. So I'm not showing you these slides to teach you guys, you know all of this, but I found it an interesting thing of getting Claude to teach itself what it is like to have two eyes, stereo vision, and a head that takes up space, right? Thanks, Tom. And then it went into things that we kind of know about, like crowding dense text into texture and so on. So, and also what we talked about over the last month of how sometimes the text is knowledge or information in itself. Otherwise, it might be a label or a direction saying there is more here. So it's beginning to understand that. And as a result of this, what I was thinking maybe we should experiment with is having icons and or color for something we are not looking at. So our peripheral vision is very motion sensitive, shape sensitive, and color. We don't have any color in our here. This is sharpness basically, right? So imagine you're in a space and there's all these items of knowledge, and the ones that represent people are icons when you look at them, maybe with a name, but when you don't look straight at them, maybe they're green. So there's a bunch of green over there. Like our bookshelves generally have a lot of color, right? So it may be useful. I don't think it's useful in other situations, just a thought, because you guys have been saying color a lot, which I appreciate and agree with. So just to reiterate, maybe show color when you're not looking at something, but when you are actively looking at it, it kind of opens up and gives you textual information. So, my
How
friend
does it
today,
know exactly what you're looking at?
So the Apple Vision Pro has foveated vision. It does.
Okay.
It knows exactly what you're looking at, and that's how you can look at something in pinch to execute a command. So that's used in several ways. One is to know what is being acted upon. Also, it's higher quality rendering, so it's faster than the human saccades per perception. I mean, the fact that it works is absolutely nuts, right? You look from here to there, suddenly the new place is rendered higher quality than what's in your periphery. It's also being implemented for off-device gaming, streaming gaming, and movies now. It's just sci-fi. I mean, it's ridiculous technology. When I first heard about it many years ago, I thought it was so stupid, but it works.
So what happens if you ask Claude this question?
What do you mean?
What is not looked at should it show icon or color?
I think that's probably, I shouldn't say it's probably, I should guess. Okay, let me go back.
You can ignore what it says, obviously. You know.
No,
But
no. I think it's a great question. Based on your, I can't say you. It has to be what a human. Okay. So when you guys use the AIs, you also sometimes click on the thinking to see how they're thinking, right?
mm-hmm.
Isn't that just the weirdest thing? It's like when it comes back on, based on the user's previous this and that, I think I must do it this way. It's just, yeah, so it's like, yeah, just look at this. It's mad. Thank you, Tom, it's a very good interruption, this kind of a question, to see what happens. So it's going all through all kinds of irrelevant stuff to see let's see if something becomes.
It's referring to you in the third person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, Claude also told me everything that was wrong with my course this week, so you know.
Oh, great.
Hey, that's what I want though. That's the thing. Again, you learn from failure, not success. And so last thing I want is a chatbot telling me, "Oh, this is perfect. You're so brilliant." Because
Sure.
I could tell myself that.
But there is a limit to it as well,
Yeah, of course.
So I do agree
You have
with
to
Peter
look at it
Waseko.
critically. And that's the tough one. You have to look at it critically. Just like anything any of you guys would say, I'm going to look at critically and go, okay, I respect your opinion, but you can be wrong too. And guess what? So can I. So therefore, you always have to be critical, and that's you shouldn't treat an AI any other way. Geez,
But
it's
it,
going
it
on and
is
on, isn't it?
sycophantic in so many ways. It just,
Well, again,
you push on it.
We've trained it to say, okay, you got to remember that the intent from the AI companies is to keep you on the platform. If it comes out and says you're the biggest idiot I've ever seen in my life, you're probably not going to type in another query. Right? So that's the problem.
Well, the interesting thing is that that's just purely a side effect. They don't actually program it to be nice. It's just the
yes, they
way
do.
of words average out. The guardrails do a minimal amount of work to help with that. It's actually the nature of the model I'm going to give you an answer. And you tell it to do a Don Rickles on me and give me, roast me. It'll do it too.
Yeah, you have to tell it to do that.
But
But yeah, I mean, I would say it is programmed in because so think about a chatbot that has no guardrails, and what you've got is X. I mean, seriously.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, you can think of it that
Yeah.
way. But the
So
guardrails
people are much
are
nastier than these chatbots. So if it's going off of how people treat each other, I don't think so.
well, that's but the average is comes out. It's reading all this great literature, and plus it's reading all of Reddit, and I'm not sure. I know when we were training models back at IBM, and we were doing the cleanliness of the data set was really important because you're going to put this in something that's going to have an impact on people in serious ways, and someone's going to sue you for not doing having it do something strange. The cleanliness of that data is good. I think that given that these models that are generally available have read everything possible, I mean, the problem is you're going to have the equal weights of, it gives a random Reddit comment the same weight as the words from an official academic paper or government website that says this is an official thing that's been studied for years, because they're just words, and the sentences don't get ranked unless you do a lot of work in the training set to make sure you say this is good.
You come say hi. Okay, sorry. Wife just came. Come on, give us a smile. They can't actually hear you because I'm on the headset, but yes.
Oh, okay.
I've seen you as a real person, not just a Zoom
Yes.
person.
Tom was saying you've seen you as a real person. Yeah, Edgar's at home with a friend today. They're actually doing the homework. So, Tom, the question provided this answer.
What do you think of it?
I think it's definitely worth thinking about. I'm glad you interrupted, and of course, I mean interrupted in the positive sense, to look at this. It's suggesting that there should be state, should be color, and shape should be identity, which kind of makes sense. And of course, it's nice that it's highlighting it's the outline of the glyph, and there can't be too many of them. The too many issue comes with both color and shape, so I think that's brilliant. But here is the final slides, and I think this goes into all our discussions today. I'm so grateful that it happened today with this session. So my friend was suggesting that, I don't know, just to remind you, I can't remember if I told you, but actually I can stop sharing, it's just two more slides, is the basic of author anyway is two-dimensional extruded. That's it. And you can take as far wide and as far back. A friend about a week ago, he said he wants text on the back, which I felt would be overloading the system. So I had not had the guts to do it. But the way he suggested it, I had to try it. And it doesn't slow down rendering at all. Clearly, Apple has dealt with surface normals and all of that stuff. So that was cool. A side effect of that is that you now have a completely different spatial arrangement. It's baffling how different it is, because previously it was 3D in front of you. Now you truly are inside it. Because when you turn around, there's something there that you can instantly read. Now, if you do this, turn it 90 degrees sideways, that means you can still have your normal document in front should you want to, and you have information right and left. So that could be stuff like stuff I haven't dealt with yet. Here are resolutions. Could be all kinds of things. This is getting interesting, and we've talked about this because of the issue if you select one, and then there's one of those lines that goes through your head, or even close to you. It's really annoying. So that's a side issue. So my friend today, he suggested that this could be used in a negotiation between two parties. We're using specific processes. So you would have, here are all the issues in front of us. So there would be information on them, what the issue is. Let's say you're buying a company or something, right? So lots of legal stuff or whatever. You can say, we've now dealt with this, so I put it behind me. Or I can look at what's behind you. Like you have all these criteria, all these things. So we can have it, instead of having just a piece of paper, we have an entire workspace where we're moving things around, right? Related to this, and going back to this in a second, is the notion of using this kind of layout for project management that are time-based. Because in our community, we've talked about timelines a lot. So imagine if you can literally walk through a project and see all the deadlines, why they weren't met, and you have lots of other data feeding into it. And then you go back out. And here is my completion for discussion to prompt you guys, especially you, Tom. And that is, imagine that this negotiation is not between two corporate suit people, but it's between two students, or a student and a teacher, or a student and an AI. So you have these bits of stuff that has meaning where they are in the space, but it is conflict resolution in an active knowledge space. Doesn't that sound enticing to get a peep into?
What's enticing to us isn't necessarily enticing to my students, but I'll.
You're building an arena. You got this. It's like a cage match in this little 3D world.
Arena
Two
is
students
perfect.
enter, one must leave. You know, like you can get into that competitive thing, which can be good for getting ideas and getting things sussed out. It isn't all cooperative friendliness. It's, you know, you're wrong. That's bad. Blah, 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 you know.
I just texted my friend that you said it's an arena. I think that's a really good way of looking at it, actually.
And I mean, you
Because
can always
also,
turn it into a true video game arena, and you have the character. You know, they do that for the video games precisely that way. But you know, gamify it. But
You can
it's
gamify
a
it.
business negotiation for you. It's always kind of contentious, anyways.
because the kind of a slight dream of this would be, you know, Tom, the teacher, he has to have some way to grade the students, which was always my least favorite thing to do as well, both because we all want them to do well and also because it's actual work. So if this is recorded in an interesting way, I could imagine having the headset on, being the teacher, having the student on the other side of the virtual table, whether they're there or not, and they have then laid out an argument spatially, and then you can literally pick it apart. You know, and if they make a good point, you put it a certain place. If they don't, you can throw it on the floor if you want to. But the fact that they are able to argue with you, make their point, and have resources that I've worked on, yes, thesis defense, 3D cage match, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
I see it. How would you use it socially to get good outcomes? So I mentioned worthy map there. That one of the things about business negotiations, you can kind of go all over the map and throw stuff against the wall, see if it sticks. More about personality and who's the strongest voice in the room, who's mostly the asshole in the room that's going to make everyone agree with them. That's one of the interesting things about some worthy maps was, oh, let's kind of get some stuff out of the personal thing, and here's the thing you can talk to over here. Again, externalize it on a diagram, and you can just move stuff around. I think that's one of the social things of his construct, as opposed to, you know, the business negotiation says it's commodity and his progression from how you're going to make money, basically. Where's
Yeah.
the ROI on things? Is that's sort of it. But that process that he has with the 2D map and that dovetail well together. I don't know. 3D adds anything to that. Maybe it does.
The
Unknown.
way the way we're talking about earlier today is that these are known issues, because, you know, he's starting from the point of like a $200 million purchase of a major company, right? Because time costs a lot of money. if things aren't done timely, it costs so much money. So that's just, there's, sorry. So that was kind of the urgency for that in that specific case. So it's not just, I don't like green, it would have to be very specific legal stuff. Like we have an issue with employment contracts for those who work there. So it's kind of more Lego bricky. And the feeling was that you can kind of move it back and forth depending on how much done it is, how much agreement. And if there are contextual bits, you can put them together. Because this would be face to face virtually with, avatars and whatever. You would have a different way you would negotiate in the arena, in the space.
Well, then you have everything kind of out front, and you don't have the problem you have with whiteboards when people can write well or they talk well and they don't capture it well. I mean, we've got a lot of nice audio. You can speak into things, and it puts the text up on the wall or on the virtual wall, so you can put up little post-its. I mean, it's the whole design
Yeah.
thing that we used to do with CRC cards and software development. Yeah, you put a bunch of post-its, and you have basically a room that's your control room for your project. It's got timelines and tasks and post-its and things and pieces of paper moving around a physical room, in the olden days. Again, Atlassian and these guys tried to automate it into computer screens. It maybe doesn't work as well because the physicality of the room is actually important for you to go walk over here. The 3D stuff is giving us back that in this virtual world. So I can see, the guys like Atlassian and stuff, they just bought the Arc browser. They may be trying to do, but I don't think their business model, they're not going to be the ones to come up with these new ideas. I think it's going to come from outside, and then they'll buy it and try to incorporate it into their tools, for instance.
So I want to
Software
ask
development,
Mohit
my
a
word.
question because he was complaining about being overloaded earlier. Would
Yeah.
this kind of environment make your situation today better or worse?
It depends. Sometimes, but a few days back, I was exploring. There was this philosopher in the subcontinent, Kabir, and there is this singer. Uh, uh, mm, I am forgetting her name, Shabnam Veermani or something like that. So I have heard her lectures a few times. And I just came across a film made by a professor who teaches graphic design at IIT Bombay. So in Bombay, I'm aware of her work as well. But I was not aware that she had made uh, some work on this issue, the partition issue, post-independence, or about a certain community. While the earlier individual, Shabnam Veermani, she has done some work on this. So both I'm subscribed to on YouTube. I have they have their own channels. I have interacted with their ideas before, but at that moment when I was watching her film, a very short film, 8 minute long, the work of Shabnam Veermani came across my mind. But at that moment, I had no medium apart from my own head, for these two things to interact. I guess this ecosystem, with by bringing things closer and in interactable form, can help us, in better understanding things.
But does it
Sometimes,
give
at
you
least.
clarity?
Yeah, of course, of course. I guess something, a medium can do only so much. I guess
Sure.
it's like maybe somebody else would come across these two things and they may not see any relevance or affinity between these two works. But and that is why I guess it's so hard to build something based on predictability. What for example, what would Tom like to see when he's coming when he comes across this work or this book? What else would Tom want? I guess it's hard. Prediction works when we have little options. When you want to narrow the engagement, prediction works great. But when you want to broaden your engagement, prediction does not work as well. And maybe there it's not that there, I guess, the medium comes in, that how do we create mediums that are able to accommodate a greater number of things, a greater variety of things, and in forms wherein these things can interact, at least the user can allow those interactions through their own agential interventions.
So, Frode, question for you. Is the purpose of the platform synthesis? Or
Just want
is
to
it gathering?
good question, Tom. Just want to introduce John. John, are you there? I mean, you're partly there at least.
Yeah.
Hello. We just went through
Hi, Sean.
the negotiation arena earlier.
Yes.
And we're still on that topic, but Tom, synthesis, or what was the other in your question?
Synthesis or gathering, I guess, is the better. I can't think of a better word. Or harvesting of information.
There's that great quote by Claude. Let me see it.
Great quote by Claude.
Oxymoron
Great quote that Claude found from somebody else.
So this is what
Which is
John and I have
fine.
been working with. This I've just put it in chat, and I'll read it out for the record. The discriminating feature of working in headset isn't is it knowledge work. It is it contested synthesis.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
I
you
think
used the word synthesis there.
yeah, but contested, right?
Contested.
So and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, Tom, but just to elaborate on what came out of that is we talked a lot about a knowledge sculpture in the community. And in a sense, a knowledge sculpture is kind of dead, right? So the real benefit of having this huge space is it's not there yet. And that's why also I was very inspired by John's notion of negotiations in business, but also, so John, Tom Hames is a teacher. And I could imagine this being used to have negotiation between a student and a teacher, kind of like an exam, but the student has presented a lot of stuff in space. So they will point to things. So the information is there, but they have to defend it. So it becomes like a simple thesis defense, but it's not just a linear paper. It is, but I said these things up here. Yeah, but I don't agree with that. So there's a little bit of physical give and take, maybe.
Yeah, the way I
Tom,
saw it, Freud, was like dispute resolution, and it would help you either achieve alignment or not achieve alignment, depending on the positions. But it's not just collecting information; it's also helping you think and get to an endpoint. At least that's the way I see it.
yeah, that's definitely. The thing is, Dave Millard, my friend and professor, when he went into this system, January, February, whatever, one of the first things he said was a poster session at a conference. So it's not a 2D poster, and it can reveal more information. Now that we're in this two-person contested information environment, it still allows you to have a space to argue, to see if there is agreement or understanding, and to bring things into the space. And the theme this month is figure and ground, which kind of comes into this, not as richly as in other areas, but supportive information, positions, knowledge should be available. But the key issues being discussed should be the key figure to be grasped at, right? The problem with working on any new media tool is defining the use cases, because if you don't define them enough, it becomes just wishy-washy. If you define them too much, it becomes too
Restricted.
focused.
Yeah.
So the other thing John and I were talking about today is kind of using the space for a project management thing, like a timeline for a very specific thing. Could also be used in business, could also be used by students. And depending on implementation, more than one person. Because I think, Tom, if I'm right, a lot of the problem you have as a teacher now is it's hard to know when it's AI generated stuff that's returned to you. And you need to figure out a way to be able to interrogate the work of a student without it taking too much time, because the thing a teacher has the least of is extra time to deal with the students, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, the problem contains within itself its own solution. Because what I'm now asking my students to do as part of their assignment is to submit their entire chat log of that particular conversation. They make a PDF of it, they upload it into the system thing. The other thing I can do, though, to get really meta with this, is I've taken to uploading those chat logs and asking Gemini or Claude, is this student showing signs of higher level thinking? Or are they just, and it's amazing the interpretation. And I look at it and I go, oh yeah, you're right. And it's something that I might have missed on a quick read, but now again, this is something where AI really helps, is that you still need to read it, you still need to look at it, but it catches things that you can then focus on that you would otherwise have skimmed over potentially, as you were just saying, there's 100 pages of chat log here, I need to get through this, right? You don't have time for that. You want to find the parts that are most important. Find the wheat from the chaff, and that's true in all sorts of. If you're looking at contracts, and this is actually what my wife is using it for. She's an insurance underwriter, and she is always looking at the contracts that the from last year or from competitor and the contract from this year, and saying, okay, what did they change? Where did the verbiage change? And then she can go back and say, okay, here's what you changed. This materially changes the nature of the contract, or it doesn't, right? And so that's where she comes into the play. But she can get through that so much faster because she can then compare the two. And she doesn't have to take that as the final answer, but it gives her a spotlight to look at. So that might be a thing to think about in the terms of the VR spaces, a spotlight. Can you develop a spotlight to help you find the needle in the haystack, the bomber over your city, so you can shoot at it.
That also does. That's really good, Tom. And of course, you told us about the uploading the chat logs before. I'm glad you mentioned it to John as well, because it's just so cool. But you could, of course, have a similar situation in this kind of a negotiation space where, we are looking at giving the AI the same control as the human. So the AI can move things, select things, parse spatial systems, and so on. It could be interesting if the negotiation is done, if it's allowed to be recorded for the parties involved, obviously not third parties. Then it may be able to transcribe all the discussions in there and see how they relate to the issues, and maybe come up with. You've talked a lot about this, but it's the same as this one, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of times that's where the insight and the breakthrough comes, is that you realize that you're just talking about the same thing, just using different vocabulary to do it. And a good negotiator picks that up.
One thing that I wanted to use AI before the current revolution was to analyze student papers for mood, basic sentiment analysis. And I wanted to have that when I was a teacher on a spreadsheet, so I could see over the last 5 papers, this student has had a very downward mood. What's going on? Right. So, Tom, you're adding, have they shown analytical things to have a spreadsheet of a whole class of how they're performing? Must be very interesting.
Yeah, once the semester's over, I'm gonna definitely put all these chat logs together and run some different kinds of analysis on them. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what kinds of things I can figure out. Because the biggest problem with being a teacher, and especially one that has a personality that makes it really hard for me to see what's going on other people's heads, which is kind of a handicap as a teacher. Um, that to be able to trace thinking in a visual way is to me the most exciting innovation that I've ever seen in 25 years of teaching. Because that's the mystery. I'm like, I don't understand how you got here. How the hell did you get to this point? What kind of thought twists and turns got you down this to this point? And if I can't see where they went, and the chat log is a visible record of that, if they're using it properly. And if I can see where they went, then I can go, oh, well, let's back things up. And this is where you kind of made an assumption that really isn't valid. And this is why you ended up down this road. That to me
Yeah,
is amazing.
that's a really good point, Tom. John, I was just going to put you on the spot a little bit, actually, since you're the newbie. Can you talk through what it felt like to do the few minutes today? Because you came into the headset with a very specific idea of what it might be, and then you moved stuff around. How did it feel like?
Yeah, it was quite interesting, actually. I wasn't sure how much functionality it had in terms of kind of the spatial text and ability to organize different data sets. And I was very positively surprised, on the functionality. Some of it was, a bit manual in terms of arranging things, but I think it's not a big step to make it less manual and to build in the AI organization tools and so forth. But I mean, seeing the words, moving them, I mean, for me, that was a very useful tool because you can focus the mind quite quickly when in my world, you're negotiating or resolving a dispute, but it could be any really governance process where you have a bunch of things and you really need to focus. If you want to get through them, you need to focus one at a time. And so you can move things off to the side. You can organize things linearly if you want to go through them, or horizontally, and you can organize things by what we did today was by completed or open issues and closed issues. This was sort of like a term sheet negotiation that we played out. And just being able to move them around the screen, and then if you can just imagine an overlay over that, an AI overlay to help you to really well, it already had the AI question capability within it. And again, it's not a huge leap to say, well, can we use AI to help us narrow the differences or think about differences in a different way so that, like you said, you're actually both talking 80% about the same thing, and it's only that 20% that's a different. And then you can really hone in on that 20%, move everything off to the side, and then you resolve the issue. So to me, it's all about how do you focus, get to the issue, get to the nub of the issue, and then resolve it. And the faster you can do that, the more efficient it is.
But at the same time, less billable hours, right?
Well, yeah, but from in-house counsel standpoint, that's a good thing. But like I said, you could use it for governance generally because I was listening to a podcast the other day on kind of philosophy of different governance systems, and it was about different mediums for different types of communications. And if you want to have a good governance discussion or a good debate about strategy or what have you, you don't want to use something like X, right? Because that's just a broadcast medium. That's meant for people to get clicks, and the best things are the ones that are most controversial. Well, that doesn't lead you to alignment on issues, right? It actually takes you farther away because you get more clicks if you're more controversial and getting farther away from cooperation. So but something like this is a tool that actually it funnels you to alignment versus away. So it's a very good tool specifically for that sort of task.
I think that relates a bit to what you were talking about earlier, Mohit, about your project, about putting these things together, right? In some degree.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, yeah.
Because you're dealing more with I know you use the term bookmarking, but it's more bookmarking. It's kind of gathering and seeing how knowledge fits together, right?
Yeah, yeah. I get, but I don't like the term bookmarking. Actually, it's just that I guess that is an activity that people
Mm.
are familiar with.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, yeah, so we want to gather as much relevant information as is possible, and also don't want to keep inside of the one of the things that I was referring to, the decentralized one, was that why should we put a user's information? Why not let the user take? Maybe they are happy with our service and they allow us access to these things, to the various things that they found important through their interactions in the world. We'll have access to those things. But if they want to switch to another platform that is offering similar services, or if they don't want to share these things any longer with us, then we won't have access. And because we
mm.
we don't want to make a profile of them, so as to target ads or to sell, to sell them to other advertisers. So
Yeah,
we won't be it won't be essential for us. Uh, yeah,
right.
but
Yeah,
this tool does not exist. That that we go on about our lives every day, and if we come across things, then how do we save them? We save them in various services. You know, very on our browsers, on our photo albums, on some other applications wherein they are just bookmarks. You don't open those things in those applications. You open a different application to see them, and depending on different media types, there are different applications. So yeah. So how do you
yeah.
bring?
No,
We bring? Yeah.
putting that together is important. But question for all of you, except you, John, because the question is about you and the perspective. What do you guys feel about the notion of using putting on a headset, or I guess let's call it conflict resolution, but it doesn't have to be like angry conflict or millions of dollars, but just two points of view coming together and being able to bring in material to make your case. How does that sound? Is this
It's a,
how
it's a,
exciting is that?
it's the same thing as though a political scientist reading historian stuff in a sense, because the
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm talking about too. Is this outside linkage of, okay, I've been working my butt off on this, but someone else has the same idea. They just have different vocabulary and they're talking about it, and I don't have time to read their literature. I don't have time to explore everything. And so anything that the spotlight can show me that says, hey, you know what, you should talk to this guy because he's working on the same thing you are, but he's not a political scientist. He's a corporate lawyer, or he's a biologist or whatever. And you discover, oh, this makes me look at my thing in a completely different way. And that to me is the aha moment, because one of our biggest problems as human beings, as pattern recognizers, is we get stuck in patterns. We get stuck in the same pattern over and over again. And you assume the next one's going to be the same. And it almost never is, but you can try to make it the same. And so anything you can
That's
do to
profound.
bust up patterns, whether you're talking about analyzing contracts, which you've looked at 100 million times, that have exactly the same format, and you miss things not because you're dumb, but because you've looked at it so many times that your brain just sort of goes, I don't need to read this part, it's not important, and you skip over it, right? And that's true of any kind of knowledge work, any kind of information work, because especially when you get into repetitive things where you're doing the same things over and over again, like reviewing contracts, or in my wife's case, policy language and things like that. That's where you make the mistake, because you think it's all the same, and then the plane crashes because it wasn't the same. Right? So that's my thinking on it. I think there's an awful lot of bleed over. I don't, and that's how I think about the knowledge navigator too, is that it can be used in a lot of different ways, because essentially, if you really boil it down, these tasks are all the same. They just have different clothes around them.
Peter Wasilko, I see you writing. I'm sure you have more to add to what Tom was saying.
Well, one of the big things in law lately is the idea of automated deal rooms, which are dealing with that sort of thing, where they'll bring all the related documents together, but it's usually just a 2D chat room with some documents displayed on the side, and of course a little video of the people who are talking at the moment. So none of that's in the headset, and I'm not sure how much 3D would bring to that.
John, what would 3D bring to that?
So I think it's to me, it's again, it's visualizing the issues and trying to narrow the issues, but it could be not just. I mean, think of it outside of a law context. Dispute resolution is kind of a word for it, but that could be a contract or litigation in a legal context. But it could also be a discussion over a budget or a discussion on a product roadmap or something like that. Anything where people are going to have differences of opinion, and you want to try to get alignment. And I think this is a good tool to help you get that alignment, and seeing it visually is helpful to really narrow in on the open issues and kind of discard the non-open issues. I mean, in my world, I do that by trading Microsoft Word documents 20 times, and that could take weeks just going back and forth and redlining and back and forth and negotiating, and then a call, and then but if you have kind of all the words and you're all in one room in a virtual room, I think it could help speed up the process tremendously.
Of course, that can take a lot of unpacking. Like room, what you mean by room? What you mean by having?
Well, I
Which
just
is
mean if you
part of the fun.
if you're both wearing a headset, and like you said, you can have two people talking to each other, and they can visualize, here's my position, here's your position, where do we meet and where are we different? Now, I don't know if I don't think it has that capability yet, does it, Frode, to the two people within the same visual space?
I'm figuring out how to add it. It is normally not super difficult to do in the headset, but our software does not fully support it yet.
Yeah.
It's not like super magic, have to do it from the ground up.
Yeah. So I think that could be helpful. I mean, it can be helpful on a one-on-one basis as well, but I think where it could really help is if you're kind of working at it together, and you can kind of see each other.
Yeah, it's interesting to look at specific use cases. And of course, I think generally in the group, what we're interested in is to help people think. And thinking is not a general thing. It also tends to be specific. Think about what. And as Tom said, get out of a rut or get out of a pattern. And also equally important is to find the pattern. So I guess we're talking pattern management in a way, right?
Right. And that's, I've actually been having these conversations with Claude about the knowledge navigator. And it says there's two different mechanisms at work here. On the one hand, you want to identify strong connections so you can develop clusters of information. So strong bonds between different chunks of information, right? But on the other hand, to do the serendipitous discovery outside your field, you actually want to be able to follow a weak bond, because it may not be as obvious because things are not cross-citing each other in that way. But that may be the answer to your question. It's not where everybody's looking, it's where everybody's not looking. And so those are two very different functions. And one of the challenges in the knowledge navigator is figuring out how to, maybe it's a switch. Say, okay, today I want to look for crumbs outside the world. Today I want to look at where everybody's talking. Where is that conversation happening? Or, and is the strength of that conversation something worth paying attention to?
Yeah, focus, and funneling versus expanding. Absolutely.
And those are two very different technical problems. And so, yeah, that's my next hurdle that I'm working on for the knowledge navigator once the semester is over.
So
This
I
week.
met McLuhan's grandson a couple of years ago. We spent an afternoon together, Andrew McLuhan. And he was mentioning how Marshall McLuhan had these inspiration cards,
Mhm.
to come up with ideas. So, John, what do you think for the negotiation bit? Is it unrealistic and silly, or is it useful in terms of what Tom was saying about patterns, where not only do you have access to the bits that are being negotiated in an AI prompt, but also different kinds of prodding, right? Like maybe in a specific negotiation, you can say to the room, we are coming at this from certain perspective. These are the companies that we're inspired by. When we get stuck, look at what we have, and then maybe put little proddings around, like, maybe go for lunch, or maybe look at this deal or whatever, right?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's what Tom was saying. You want to break the pattern because you get into the positional bargaining, right? Often in these negotiations, and you get stuck. You entrench yourselves, and it becomes I win, you lose, as
Hmm.
opposed to, well, maybe we can both win, or maybe maybe we need to look at it differently, or maybe we just need to take a break and depersonalize this a little bit. All of those things help in these sort of dispute resolution uh, cases where a good mediator or something will do that, right? But if you have a tool that helps you do that, then all the better.
I just really like the idea of, we've all seen the sci-fi movies of transparent screens of people sitting across the table and having all the stuff they need, but dynamically.
Mm.
So, these are the assets we're negotiating around, whether it's around climate change or it's financial deal. These are those things. They're quite solid things in the room. And then you have more floaty other things. So one of the things I am looking at now is to allow the AI to interact with the room in the same way a user can. So that very much goes into that kind of thing, where you could say to the AI, look through all the information in these specific index cards and then arrange it based on a certain other criteria in the room. That's a whole different level of the next place to go. And that would probably also allow one of the earlier dreams of having non-human avatars in the room. So let's say, John, could you mention a negotiator that you've read about, the name of a person?
Um, it's a
I'm
good
sorry for
question.
putting you on the spot again there, but
No, I mean, no, it's a good question. I mean, you have the good corporate negotiators, the good law firm partners like Wachtell and Lipton and all those old school partners from the big corporate firms, right? The master negotiators, that sort of thing. Yeah.
because I could imagine, I mean, this is like a 2-year-old idea, but it may be realistic. You specify to your LLM, learn everything about that person or
Yeah.
that company or that philosophy. Then you have them in the room, maybe as a little glowing orb. Maybe if they represent the company, it could actually be the logo. So you have that off to the side. And as you do going through, they're all paying attention. So there may be a point where they start glowing or talking or whatever it might be,
Yeah.
and saying, you're violating these principles right now. Or have you considered these other things?
Well, yeah, I
But
was
it's,
thinking in Harvard, Uri and Fisher getting to yes, right, is kind of a standard tome on negotiations, and you could have an avatar that's kind of trained on that framework and helps the participants get to yes, right? But they can use the framework and the recommendations that are set out in that book, for instance. You could train it quite easily on it.
And then I guess each side in a negotiation could have their own. So it doesn't have to be the same.
No, it doesn't.
And then, and then we can get to the those avatars arguing, and then it's getting quite colorful.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to talk about whatever space is being built. Over the last few months, we've asked the question, what should be in the space? What's the purpose of the space? And I remember at Syracuse, where both Peter Rosilko and I went, a professor saying that all rhetoric is persuasion. It's so powerful. You never write something or say something unless you want to persuade someone. It could be a small persuasion, just hello, as in, I'm greeting you, but it's always trying to have an impact on another mind. So to explicitly think about that in such a space is really interesting. And I think it could branch business cases and educational cases.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would say is one mistake we potentially make here is that negotiation is also being able to pick the other guy's wallet. And I think John said earlier the 80% of stuff that is not important, and then the 20% that is, and the stuff that this is where the meat of the negotiation's got to happen. Well, I have definitely been in rooms where the strategy among some people was to get you to focus on the 80% so they could steal the 20%. And we see this all the time in politics as well. And so we're assuming that, we're trying to build a knowledge space. But you do have to be cognizant of the fact that there's an awful lot of BS out there that is going to attempt to distract you and sell you the snake oil. And if you have any doubts about that, just look at the current political landscape. Or any political landscape, actually, in some ways, in the last 200 years or more since Burke. So, that is something that we can't completely ignore. I think we focus a lot on that 20%, and that's fun and that's good. And for those of us that are there for knowledge sake and trying to get at what's really going on, that's exactly what we want. But you also have to remember that the rest of the world doesn't necessarily want that.
You're absolutely right, Tom. And this is why I think it's really, really important in Doug Engelbart's style dialogue to have both business and also military perspectives. We got to have, and artistic, we got to have different ways of looking at it. But I think what's exciting about what John is talking about is this is not necessarily a friendly negotiation space, right? I mean, it should be good humored and friendly, but we're talking about a lot of money from his point of view. So that's why it is really, really important to be able to check things quite literally from your perspective, right? And if you're going to be able to make
theirs, call them on it.
Exactly. This is what the room needs to be able to provide the affordances for. Absolutely. Similarly to a basic thing with, for instance, in Author, when you export, you can click a button and it'll write an abstract for you. And that's not necessarily to help your teacher. That is to help you see that did the paper communicate what you thought? Because if the abstract is wrong, that means that you are wrong. Rewrite the relevant sections of the paper. So yes, you should absolutely be able to check yourself before you wreck yourself. Isn't that what they say?
Well, then that X would go out of business if that were the case. One thing would be, okay, here's an interesting little thought. So in a negotiation room, you're putting up the information as you see it, right? But the other person, the other side of the screen, sees that as a puzzle. And so you both give each other a puzzle, and that maybe you literally could turn it into a game of how can I solve your puzzle? and how can you solve mine? And then after that is only when you start talking for real, because now you've got a much deeper understanding of the other side of the negotiation, for better or worse. But if you can actually go through and say, okay, I know why this person is thinking this way.
And
Here's
that's an
the
interesting
pattern.
point, Tom. I think one of
Yeah,
the things is big that's big in negotiation is empathy. I think to have
sure.
a successful negotiation, because otherwise
Which is something I lack, but I would
but
not
I
be a
mean,
good
like you said, though,
negotiator.
otherwise you become
Yeah,
entrenched. And if you have
yeah.
empathy for the other side's position, you can actually understand where they're coming from and try to figure out how can I help solve their issue, right?
Hmm.
And mine as well at the same time.
That's
Yeah, this might be a
really
way to simulate empathy, though,
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
way that would level
well.
the playing field.
Well, that sounds like that Hollywood early boss said the most important thing is sincerity, and if you can fake that, no, no. But when you talk about empathy, I'm so glad this. We only have like 4 minutes left, and this has come up because one of my friends from the military who worked in intelligence, he was in charge of intelligence in a culture that's very different from his own. So what did he do? He studied it, right? When you had a meeting with people, you would make sure that they sat in this manner and they, all of these things, like all these little things add up. And I think absolutely a negotiation room should be able to help you sit on the other table, side of the table. Maybe you annotate your own important points more from your own culture. Things you may think is obvious, you try to put it there so the other person can see it, the other party can see it. Yeah, I mean, there is. I saw someone really clever the other day point out that human communication is not transfer of information; it's transfer of triggers. Whether written or spoken, it triggers something in another human brain, right? And it's a bit shocking, but it's true, right? But except for a few moments where we really talk, if I say, like John, I say, I picked up I picked up Julian and Edgar today. That's very clear. We both have a full context of that. The rest of you don't even know who Julian is, right? So there's a huge amount of information missing, and you just have so the trigger for you is a question. It's, so when you look at information as being that barren or weak, the job of the contextual and the systems we're talking about becomes more interesting. By the way, I saw that on TikTok. There's some weird little people on there who sometimes, make you go a little bit like that.
The problem is you have to spend a hell of a lot of time to find them.
Well, the algorithm is pretty good. And not to go into a long TikTok thing, but what I really like about TikTok is the way you can see the comments quickly and easily. Because when there's some rubbish, you're told instantly because the comment section is algorithmically worked out as well. And they actually cite things properly. And anyway, I'm just clicking
So,
on the links here that you guys put in.
yeah, the book I put in there is one of my, I think I mentioned it before, but it's one of my favorite visual statistics of visual storytelling books in a sense, because it talks about how you can, I mean, it's called How to Lie with Statistics. It's from the 1950s, but how do you take the same data and show it in such a way to change people's perception of the data, even if that's incorrect, right? So the assumption that, and this is something we definitely have to bear in mind because we're dealing with a visual medium here, you and I both, in terms of our projects, and you can be misled by that, and in a way that people think that because they can see it, they they take it less critically, and that's in some ways dangerous. One of my favorite quotes, not direct quotes, but thoughts from Ansel Adams was the reason he shot in black and white is because he felt like if he shot in color, people would think it's the literal truth, and he wanted it to show as art. And he said there's no mistaking black and white for anything other than art. It's you know you and regular photographs will lie in the same way. It's just that when you have a wonderful color photograph, you feel like you're in the scene. But, you know, that's part of the photographer's art, is figuring out a good way to lie to you about what they saw.
That is absolutely true. Picasso said, "Good artists don't." Good artists steal. Great artists steal. Exactly.
Yes,
But that
good
was
artists
kind of
copy.
exactly that goes in another direction. But also one thing to kind of that I find a bit scary. If you look at rounding errors, right? If you look at all the knowledge a human could possibly have compared to all the information in the universe, our knowledge is zero. We literally know, as a rounding error, nothing. Right? It doesn't even approach any kind of a number.
Mhm.
So you talked earlier about empathy plus humility, right? If we're
Yes.
going to get somewhere. So with that,
Unless you're
and
Zaphod Beeblebrox.
or Elon Musk. So with that, and being 30 seconds over, I thank you all for today. And John, good to see you here and at Nero earlier. And I look forward to seeing you all again when you have time and convenience and interest. Next month, we'll have to figure out a topic. I think it'll be something along the lines of what we talked about today, as in figuring out how to negotiate or something like that in a headset. There's a lot of meat on that bone, I think.
Negotiating meaning.
Negotiating meaning. I love it.
Yeah.
Have a good week, everyone.
Yeah.
Have a great week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye
Great
bye.
week.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.